Lindsay Lohan's got something to hide in the Netflix movie Our Little Secret. So is it worth finding out what that secret is? Two resentful exes are forced to spend Christmas under the same roof after discovering that their current partners are siblings. So Lindsay Lohan is back in another holiday rom-com where she and her childhood sweetheart had a massive falling out, only to then unknowingly come together a decade later as they both attend their respective partners' home for the holidays. And that's where the wrench comes in. The partners are siblings, meaning that now the uncomfortable and awkward interactions can commence. And to add to the complexities of this reconnection, the duo decides to keep their past, including them even knowing each other, a complete secret from their partners and the family. Now, from a story standpoint, this hits a lot of the typical beats that you might expect, with the story providing us glimpses into each of the characters' lives before then they reconnect and experience the cringe. Now, in addition to Lohan, this also features Kristin Chenoweth, Ian Harding, Jon Rudnitsky, Katie Baker, Tim Meadows, and Judy Reyes. Now, Lohan is Avery, and her childhood love is Logan. Their chemistry that isn't apparent right off the bat, but then neither is Avery's chemistry with her current beau, Cameron. They're seemingly mismatched, with Cameron coming from a more posh family that's hung up on appearances, while Avery comes from a modest home where her dad raised her in just a regular suburb. And while the same situation exists for Logan and his girlfriend, Cameron's sister's Cassie, they get along a tad bit better. But it's still very obvious that Cassie's family has certain visual standards that Logan may not fully live up to. Kristin Chenoweth is feisty in this, with a lot of biting sarcasm and pointed comments. Her delivery, though, I thought it was wonderful, creating this emotional contradiction for the character. On one hand, she's enjoyable because she's quick-witted, but on the other, she's quite mean, so it's hard to root for her in any sense. Now, the story plays out in a straightforward and predictable manner, with only a few surprises tucked away. But there's still this sweetness that, for me, also created a bit of a conundrum. While I'd love to see Avery and Logan rekindle their relationship, mostly just because they work so well together and they really get each other, that means that Cassie then would be dumped. As I already said, she and Logan, they kind of work. Now, this issue, it's not really a huge one because the story skimps on the relationships and the dynamics of Avery and Cameron, and then also with Logan and Cassie. I mean, aside from the initial scenes that just introduce us to the couples. Now, the majority of the story showcases Avery and Logan together, which is really the point anyway, which then just tries to win us over on their belonging together. And even when some areas of the story are skimped on to get us to a comedic sequence faster, the missing portions aren't a huge detriment to the overall storytelling. There is a sequence where Logan and Avery go to this Christmas tree farm, and while this is only briefly shown, it's used as the impetus to create a situation that's going to lead to amusing calamity. And the scene that follows, while fairly tame and obvious, ends up being pretty humorous, with Lohan getting to utilize her comedic skills and timing. I mean, don't get the idea that this is laugh-out-loud hilarious, but it is a cute scene, and it made me chuckle. It's also a bit fantastical and ridiculous, which then helps add to the lightheartedness. Now, there's another sequence that puts Lohan into another odd scenario. And while it is cringy, it once again allows Lohan's charm to come through, showing the heart of the character to be somebody that we do want to root for, even if she is the one who's causing many of her own issues. Now, the movie ends up being a tad too long, with sequences that either aren't necessary or are drawn out. And while it's not a drastically lengthy movie, I did feel the hour and 41-minute time. Especially towards the end of the film, where we get a sort of montage that it's not adding to the overall quality of the plot. Now, part of this is the inclusion of Logan's work project and his problem. It's an uninteresting arc, and while I get the purpose of its inclusion, to have a reason for Ashley and Logan just to work together, the amount of screen time that it does get, albeit spread out throughout the movie, it's just a lackluster addition. Now, from a technical perspective, this is done well. I mean, there's nothing that stands out as terrible or stellar. It's put together better than your typical Hallmark film, and it looks better than that, but it's still got a sanitized and polished look to everything, creating an unblemished veneer over the entire production. Overall, Our Little Secret is a cute and lighthearted romantic comedy that excels mainly when relying on Lindsay Lohan and Kristin Chenoweth's comedic abilities. The situations are silly yet satisfying, charming the audience with sweet but obvious conflicts that are quickly but humorously resolved. While the story dwells too long on elements that don't add value, this is offset by the appealing dynamic that drives this return to love story. There's no sex, nudity, or violence, with just a tiny bit of profanity. I give Our Little Secret 3 out of 5 couches. Now, while this isn't the drop everything to watch holiday film, it is one of the better, newer options available. All right, do you have a favorite Lindsay Lohan film? I mean, I really enjoy Freaky Friday. Who doesn't, right? But I'm curious to see what the sequel is going to bring. I don't know. Let me know yours, though, in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.